Hello, book lovers, and welcome to another episode of Authors Love Bookstores from a Mighty Blaze. I'm your host, Joe Moldover, and I am delighted to be back here with you today for our 86th episode. Every week, my partner and friend, Kimberly Hensel-Lorance, and I travel across North America and the UK, visiting independent bookstores and the authors who love them. And today, we are in Knoxville, Tennessee, at Union Avenue Books with bookseller Flossie McNabb and author Caitlin Hamilton Summie. Caitlin and Flossie, welcome. I'm so happy to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here.
Me too.
Absolutely. For the audience, Caitlin Hamilton Summie, and I hope I'm saying your name correctly, earned an MFA with distinction from Colorado State University. Her story collection, To Later Rest Our Ghosts, won the 4th annual Philip H. McMath Book Award, silver in the Forward Indies Book of the Year Award for short stories, and was a Pulpwood Queen Book Club bonus book. Her debut novel, Geographies of the Heart, is out this year and was inspired by 3 stories in her collection. In addition to writing, Caitlin co-owns the book marketing firm Caitlin Hamilton Marketing and Publicity, founded in 2003. Caitlin, I'm going to come to you first. The reason that we are in Tennessee today and visiting Union Avenue is because you love them and you nominated Union Avenue Books. So first question is for you to tell us why. What is so special about this bookstore?
I love Union Avenue Books so much, and I'm just thrilled to get to tell people why and to celebrate our Knoxville home store. I love Union Avenue Books for 3 reasons. The first is that they've been such champions of mine and other small press writers and local writers, all writers, but especially us here in Knoxville. And I told Flossie earlier today, I told her the night of my launch that they are a literary light in my life. They have meant so much to me in my career. And I don't want to get all teary, but their support of me has meant the world. The second reason I love Union Avenue is I just love the people. When I go in, I can just talk to anybody. They're warm, they're welcoming, they're knowledgeable. When I left last time, I sailed out the door suggesting Chelsea and I have a coffee one day. I mean, just such wonderful people. You want to hang out with them. And the third reason I love Union Avenue is the store itself. The way it's designed is so light and airy. It's fronted by all windows. And then they did this beautiful thing where each section is almost like 3 sides of a box. So you can go in and tuck yourself into a section and just curl up with those books. But you're not closed in, and you step out and you can be in this airy, beautiful, sunny room and look at all the tables and all the special knickknacks they sell. And then maybe you want to go check out the biography section and you get to cocoon yourself again. It's just a fabulous place, as well as filled with fabulous people. I love Union Avenue and I love the team there.
I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. And we love you.
It's such a wonderful way of talking about an independent bookstore. I think it just sort of captures what people love about independent booksellers. Flossie, let me come to you. So you have a partner there in your lap. So that is Scout.
Scout Finch.
Who's, I think, from what I understand on the website is the store mascot.
Yes.
And the store itself is a family affair, I think. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, my daughter, we opened the store downtown in 2011. They were 2 short-lived partners. And my daughter worked there too, as well. And it finally dawned on us that we were the perfect match to be partners. So she and I have been partners for 8 or 9 years. We've been there 11 years.
That's great.
So it is a family affair. Yes.
That's wonderful. These last 2 years now have been obviously an incredibly difficult time for independent booksellers who were already contending with a lot of challenging market forces. Can you tell us what this period of time has been like for you and how Union Avenue has kind of weathered this pandemic?
Yes, it just seems like a kind of a dream and a nightmare altogether the last 2 years, but it's just been the support that we receive from our customers has gotten us through this.
Yeah.
We weren't open, of course, for a long time, but we did online orders, we did shipping, we did sidewalk pickup, curbside pickup. Just it was incredible the support we got
Yeah.
from and phone calls of people really just wanting to talk and get ideas for books, and it just kind of changed the way I thought of the whole business. Really, it's all about the people, and we did a lot of deliveries. Still do. In some ways it hasn't changed a lot even after the pandemic has gotten a little better. We still deliver, we still do curbside, we still ship, and then we get more and more people in as well.
Yeah.
So it's those things aren't going to change.
Right.
The things that we added for the pandemic.
Absolutely. Caitlin, I want to come to you with a couple of questions. Many of the people who watch this show are writers themselves or aspiring writers. I'd love to talk to you just a little bit about your books and your writing. Before I do, I want to remind the audience, both people out there now and also people watching this video in sort of future time on various platforms, that the purpose of the show is to support independent booksellers. And we're going to be putting links into the chat to visit Union Avenue Books online. I want to encourage you to head over to pick up a copy of Geographies of the Heart. We're going to be linking to that in the online store. Pick up To Later Rest Our Ghosts. Pick up, there it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Flossie.
And it's a staff pick. So please support independent booksellers, support Union Avenue Books. Caitlin, let me talk to you for a moment. So I have a number of questions for you, but I guess I just sort of want to begin with this one. Geographies of the Heart is your debut novel. But it sounds like you're somebody who really came through the short story avenue. Your first published work of fiction was a short story collection, which I think is unusual. I mean, you have a publicist hat, so you would know better than I do. But what I sort of understand is that short story collections can be difficult to sell. Oftentimes, when they go to market, it's with authors who have made their name with novels and are now sort of bringing out a collection as a later Stephen King short story collection, something like that. You led off with a short story collection, and now we're giving us your debut novel, which grew out of some of those stories. Would you talk a little bit about that, just both from a marketing point of view and also from a sort of a craft and writing point of view?
Sure, thank you. Nobody's asked me that question about the marketing and the short stories, so let me start with that. I think largely, in my experience, you're right that people do a novel first, then publish stories, almost as an interlude to the second novel,
Right.
and that the first novel sales drive the short story sales. So I did do it in reverse. But the reason I did it in reverse is because that's what I had, and that's what was solicited by my publisher. He asked if I had a collection. And in a way, it made sense to me as well in terms of how I've evolved as a writer. So we just went with it. And, if a publisher asks to see a manuscript, you do try to respond. My initial response actually was, no, I don't. But a year later, I realized actually I did, and I should take courage and put them all together and see what he says.
Okay.
I literally wrote back immediately and said I thanked him so much for his interest, but no. So I decided to try. We published it. I think it did better than people expected in a lot of ways. And that was very gratifying. And I need to give a huge shout out here to my husband, Rick Summie, who is my business partner as well, and is my publicist. And he is going more and more gray being so. He's the most patient man alive. But the stories I had that spoke to me a lot in the collection were about the Macmillan Sisters. And it's not that I didn't love the others. It's just that I knew I wasn't done with those ladies. And I actually had a few other pieces written about them. And so when a book club asked me what happens to Sarah and Glinny, I came home and I thought, I should really tell everyone what happened to Sarah and Glinny. And so I slogged through and finished Geographies of the Heart.
Mm. That's fascinating. I have a follow-up question for you. And then in a moment, Flossie, I'm going to come to you with a question about selling short story collections. But Caitlin, I do want to ask you, so it's interesting to me when the publisher said to you, do you have a short story collection? Your first answer was no. And then a year later, I think what you said was like, I realized I did. And like, what was that realization? I mean, obviously you had written short stories. You had short stories like on your hard drive. Was that you had to realize that they cohered in some way? Was it that you had to realize like what the sequence was? Like what was like, how did you realize like you had a collection on your hands?
I don't know why I initially said that quick no. But I really didn't believe I had a collection. And then about a year later, I realized a lot of things were happening. There were a lot of bad headlines. I was getting older. I had children. I was constantly urging to follow their dreams, and I sat down and thought about it. And I thought, well, pull some stories together, see what you have. So I sifted through them all. I had 10 that I thought were publishable. Either they'd been published in journals or I thought that they could be. And I put them together in an order I thought made sense, which later changed. And I took my shot.
Yeah.
It was really life. Life happened.
Right.
And I thought, how dare you turn this down? See what the gentleman has to say.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's kind of the leap, right? Like that's the leap of publication.
You've got to try.
You got to put it out there.
Yeah.
Flossie, there are some short story collections that are going to sell. I mean, when George Saunders comes out with a collection, it's going to sell. Mm-hmm. Actually, right now I'm reading a collection by Kevin Wilson, who I guess is a native Tennessean, right? He's one of yours.
Very funny.
Very funny. Tunneling to the Center of the Earth. Great, wonderful collection. But in general, do short story collections sell? Do people come in looking for them? Are they a tough sell? How do you look at that market from kind of the seller's point of view?
I think a lot of people, especially on our staff, love short stories, and I'm one of them. Yeah. But we have a couple of other booksellers that they read a lot of short stories. And I just think maybe because we're in a university town and there are a lot of professors that write collections. I mean, I think it's a really, really good genre. And I personally, I love to pick up a book and read a story and just keep going like that. Mm-hmm. So I think we sell a lot of good collections of not well-known writers.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a really good field.
I wonder if publishers are more leery of them than they should be. And I think it's sort of a shame because I think there are a lot of writers, especially early in their careers, who have some wonderful short stories, but haven't sort of taken on the novel form yet. Caitlin, what was that like for you? I mean, you were a short story writer. You published, obviously, a number of them, and you just jumped into writing a novel, which obviously has been published and is successful. But what was that transition like from writing the short story to writing the novel?
That is also a question nobody has really asked. And the issue for me became that I had other pieces about these women. And so I initially presented this as a novel in stories. I had to fill in some gaps. I had to rewrite some chapters. I had to write a whole new piece when I realized there was a significant event that had never been addressed and would not have not been addressed. But my publisher said, why aren't we taking a leap here and calling it what it is? It's a novel. And so then I had to sort of readjust the structure again. It takes me a long time to write. My first book took me 25 years. I'm a working mom. I've moved multiple times. There are whole years where I don't get to write. And this one took another couple of years. And at this point, I really don't remember how long it's taken. I mean, people laugh, but it has been the longest, slowest journey known to publishing, I think. So it was sort of a leap, but I had the pieces. And the real leap for me wasn't to put a novel out there so much as to see the way these threaded together in a sort of alternative structure. Because I think novels are generally told one way. And I have 3 narrators, and some of them are speaking in first person, and in the next chapter they're in third. I was really blessed to be with an editor who let me structure this novel the way I heard it.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. You know, Flossie used the term genre when she was talking about selling the short story. And I think one interesting thing about you is, apart from having been in the short story and the novel spaces, I think I read in another interview that you did that you have a picture book that you've either put on market or thought about putting on market. I think you alluded to doing some middle grade fiction. So more than most of the writers we speak to, you seem to be kind of a genre omnivore or something like that.
What a great
And
term. Oh my gosh, I want a t-shirt.
yeah, I don't know. But I wonder, you know, and also you're very interesting because in addition to being an author, you're also a publicist. So you know, I'm sure you think about genre not only from like how you write to genre, but also like selling these things. So I sort of want to ask an open-ended question, which is like, how do you think about genre as both a writer and a publicist? And, you know, how does it guide you? How does it limit you? How easily do you move across these categories? Just what do you think about it?
You know, I think with my life and the amount of time I have to write, which is never a dedicated time. It's the 5 minutes in the pickup line before the kids come out of school, things like that. I write what I hear. And so I don't care what the format is. I write the stories I hear. And I feel that I should just take flight, write whatever I want. As a writer, I don't really worry about marketability. That may be because I'm a publicist.
Right.
And I know what will sell and what's hot and what's trendy, but I'm also honest about what I write. And I want to be true to my own craft. But as a publicist, I have a very different attitude. And I am, you know, people call me to ask if I can represent them, and genre does matter. I need to be able to call Flossie and say, I love this book. This is fabulous. This is where you would shelve it. You know, I have to know what I'm talking about, where the book fits in order to help Flossie sell it. So I, as a publicist, am a little bit hard line about where books fit, whether or not they fit, how to sell them. But I know my work isn't always in the box, and I respect that. And I don't try and force it into one. I just hope that its readers, with the work Rick has done, will enjoy it. And they are. But as a writer, I worry less about market. That to me is entirely my publicist's hat after 2 cups of coffee.
Oh, that's great. Flossie, what do you think about it? I mean, I love what Caitlin is saying about kind of having these different hats for thinking about genre. I often find in these conversations that authors and booksellers can kind of have a love-hate relationship with the concept of genre. You know, we spoke with a bookseller a few weeks ago who talked about rearranging their shelves to make them color-coded rather than by genre, just to kind of break people out of their reading habits. Certainly, as a writer, I find genre to be a useful guide in terms of the beats or the tropes that I need to hit. But I can also find it frustrating because it can make it difficult to reach the readership that you might want to go to. Tell me a little bit about how you think about it as a bookseller.
Well, I think there's a lot of, especially with young adult novels, we have them in the intermediate section, not in with the shelving of them intermediate, but they're in that area in our bookstore. And there's so many adults that read these that, you know, we have talked about moving it in another area because it's such a wildly popular genre. Yeah. And it's ageless kind of. It's not, I mean, a couple of our booksellers, they just eat them up the young adults and
Yeah.
recommend them to adults as well as young adults. So that's one of the big ones to me that and it's grown so much in sales.
It has. It's funny in this conversation with other booksellers, YA oftentimes comes up. Actually, people oftentimes start talking about why I'm a YA author, and YA oftentimes comes up in in terms of saying like, yeah, like what do we do with that one? Like, I mean, there's so much crossover. It's read by adults. It's not really for kids, but it's also not on the literary shelf. We've had people talk about moving and renaming the YA section and things like that. So it does seem like sort of the odd man out sometimes.
It does.
Yeah, which is interesting.
Like Anthony Doerr's Cuckoo Land
Yeah,
is one of my. I really think it could be a young adult novel.
interesting.
I mean, I really do, and it's all about libraries and it's children who are not quite grown yet, but they're probably 15 or 16, the main characters. I mean, I just think it could be why do we not have it over there?
It's so hard to say. I mean, Jason Reynolds is coming out, as you know, with his first adult book. And, I saw an interview with him over the weekend where somebody asked him, what's the difference? What's the difference between a YA and an adult? And he sort of said, it's honestly just about the tone. It's really just about sort of the tone and the voice and the feel of it. But there's no kind of hard and fast rule.
Okay.
Which made sense to me.
And it's not the length, because there are a lot of young adult that are really lengthy.
Well, and the subject matter. I mean, there's a lot of young adult on very tough subject matter as well. So, I mean, I think it's so hard to say. Caitlin, I always like to ask, are we going to find a Caitlin Hamilton Summie sci-fi or romance or fantasy tucked away in a drawer somewhere? Do you sort of do you sort of explore genre in that way or no?
No, I am really driven by voice. So I do have that middle grade novel, and people laugh when I say this, but it's true. I mean, I'm only about 11 years in on it, so I've got another decade to go. I'm that slow, and I do hope to place that picture book. But I don't know. Maybe in 2 years I'll send you an email and say, "You're never going to believe this. Guess what I'm writing?"
It's about robots.
You're just following your voice.
I'm following my voice. Yeah.
I love it.
You have a wonderful voice in your writing.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
To the online audience, I love her?
What?
I said, do you see why I love you? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. To the online audience, if you're joining us midway through, I want to let you know we're speaking to the author, Caitlin Hamilton Summie, author of the debut novel, Geographies of the Heart, along with Flossie McNabb from Union Avenue Books in Knoxville, Tennessee. Links are in the chat. Head to the bookstore, pick up a copy, pick up a few copies, pick up something else, support independent booksellers. Caitlin, again, I sort of want to take advantage of having you here just because you have such an interesting biography and the fact that you have, the publicity hat and things like that. And again, I mean, people who watch this are oftentimes people who are just very interested in kind of the inside baseball stuff on publishing, what gets bought, what gets sold, what takes off, what sinks, that type of thing. So, I mean, a couple quick questions about that. I mean, first of all, I believe that you are with Later Rest Our Ghosts and Geographies of the Heart. I believe that you are published through a small press. You kind of alluded to that earlier in terms of your love of indie bookstores. I think I remember from your biography that you had in your, before starting your own publicity firm, I believe had worked with larger publishers.
Larger and smaller. So I started with McMurray & Beck.
Yeah.
Which launched Susan Vreeland's Girl in Hyacinth Blue, Steve Yarbrough's The Oxygen Man, William Gay's I mean, it was a great run. Unfortunately, that press didn't survive. From there, I went to Penguin Putnam for a while. And then I went solo. And a lot of my work has been with small presses because I really understand small presses and the allocation of resources. I'm really passionate about small presses, but not exclusively so. I have authors with the big five. I have authors with the middle-sized presses as well.
So this is something I want to ask you about. I'm going to ask you about it, then Flossie, I'll come to you next. But Caitlin, I mean, I think a lot of authors, when they're in the position of in the lucky position of being able to sort of bring a book to put a book out on sub, maybe get a couple of offers if they're very, very lucky, sort of tend to kind of be of the mindset that bigger is better. You want to be with a large press. You want to be one of the big five, or whatever it is now, big four, whatever they are now. I certainly remember feeling that way. But I wonder if you have some thoughts about the advantages of smaller presses. I mean, I think people worry that if they're not with a big one, not with PRH, they're not with whoever, that they're not going to be sent out to all the bookstores. They're not going to be considered for a movie deal. There's just not going to be a big enough megaphone. But tell me what you think. I mean, can you make the case for the small press, maybe?
Well, I can. I mean, I think that one of the things I say to people when they call me as a publicist is, what are your expectations? What are you trying to achieve? What are your goals? Because if you don't know those, you'll never know if I've met them.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing needs to be honestly answered by authors who are applying for agents. What do you want? Because there are advantages and disadvantages. I think with a small press, you get such beautiful personal attention. I mean, I've written about the fact that Mark Estrin, my editor / publisher, worked with me for 6.5 months on 5 pages, right? Because he kept telling me it wasn't working. But this has taken me an age. I was in a huge rut. I thought where my characters met was where they met. What he was trying to tell me was that their meeting at a party wasn't doing them justice. It wasn't working. But for 6.5 months, I just moved the party. It was here. I wasn't hearing it, right? And finally I got it. Finally I rewrote it. 6.5 months on 5 pages.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of small press publishers have such passion for what they're doing and for discovering and amplifying voices. I think so many small press publishers, like mine, Fomite Press, begin because a lot of authors aren't finding homes in the larger houses, and they're seeing good work that's not being brought to market, and they want to celebrate all the voices they can. I think that there are tremendous advantages to having that personal attention, that close on hand editing attention, that almost mission-driven focus that some small press publishers have. And I'm not for or against small presses or large presses. I think they both serve. What every writer needs is their best fit. Yeah. And the best fit is only discovered if you ask those tough questions, that you need to ask as a writer.
I asked earlier, when I sort of speculated, or I wondered whether authors are done a disservice by receiving the message that short story collections aren't going to sell or aren't marketable. I also wonder, sort of in parallel, if there's a disservice that's done to authors if agents are reluctant to pitch to the smaller presses, either out of concern with prestige or out of concern with the size of the advance. Do you think that that's an issue, that authors are sort of steered towards the big houses, kind of looking for the gold ring when maybe they'd be more at home with a smaller press?
I think that the agents have to make a living, and certainly small presses often don't have the resources for the advances that the large houses do. Yeah. Some small presses do, a lot don't. But I think that anecdotally among the writers I know, a lot of agents are advising small presses and pitching to some small presses as well. Certainly trying larger houses, but not forgetting the small presses. There are so many fine small presses. I mean, I do hold a special place in my heart for all of us who work in small press publishing, because I think we're really in the trenches, and it's why Union Avenue matters so much. It's why the support of independent bookstores is so crucial. We indie people have to hold each other up together.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
also,
Yeah.
it sets the small presses, the ones that we have in our store, it makes us different than the big boxes
Right.
because we are showing that it sets us apart. So we are drawn to those when we look at the lists every season. Chelsea, our buyer, she's really good about, picking out those unknown books that aren't with the big house, but look really, to her mind, really good, like really good, we need in our store.
So,
And so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. I mean, Flossie, I think that one of the concerns that authors and agents sometimes have about the small press, I mean, let me frame it this way. You're the bookseller, and I know that booksellers that I speak with, independent booksellers, oftentimes really feel like they just face a deluge of pitches. It's like you're standing at the narrow point of a funnel, and all of this stuff is coming in. The catalogs from the big houses, people who are self-published are reaching out. Just so many books, so many
yes,
people looking for attention, so many people looking for shelf space. And I think that the concern is that a smaller publisher isn't going to get your attention, or you're not going to take their call. But it sounds like that's not the case for you. I mean, it sounds like you're somebody who's interested in kind of the unique books that they're bringing to the market.
yes, we are very much so.
That's great.
And with local writers that bring their books in, um, that's just one of our huge sections is our local
Hmm.
writers and authors because um, people from out of town will come in. They go, "I want a book or collection of short stories by a local author."
Yes.
And we've got them. We've got
Yes.
Caitlin. We've got Michael Knight. We've got, we've got them. Or they want a local poet. They want the flavor of our region. And
Absolutely.
and that's just a huge part of our store.
I mean, Sylvia just posted saying she visited in November when visiting from Nebraska. So
Thank you.
thank you, Sylvia. Flossie, audience question for you. Somebody would like to hear what you personally like to read and why you wanted to open a bookstore in the first place.
Oh, I guess I really am drawn to literary fiction and mainly character driven fiction. Like that's why I was drawn to Caitlin's book because I love stories about families and about sisters and and so that's what that's what I love. And that's what I usually is on my shelf, what I recommend. But I do branch out and read some science fiction or a thriller every now and then. I mean, that I like to read everything.
Yeah.
And I worked in the 90s. I worked for Davis Kid Bookstore Sellers in Knoxville, and they closed in 2000. And I just had it in. I just got it in my blood. So we look for, and here we are.
It's a great way of putting it. It's a great way of putting it. Caitlin, in just a moment, I'm gonna come to you and start to talk to you about other people's books and the books that you're reading that you're excited about that you might want to pitch. Before I do, I again want to remind the audience, both the people watching now and people watching in the future, this is a free ride. We're all here as volunteers, but we're doing it to support independent booksellers, support Union Avenue Books in Knoxville, Tennessee. Links are in the chat. Head over. Geographies of the Heart is available, as well as To Lay to Rest Our Ghost. You can get both through the bookstore as well. Yeah, I cleverly did not bring my copy to the office today, which was where I'm broadcasting from. So thank you for having the
Yes, and it's a fabulous cover. I mean,
it's a great,
this is another advantage of a small press. Their covers
yes.
are fabulous.
I was going to say that it seems like they really put a lot of care into
Mhm.
into the cover art, which I know in some of the big presses, if you're a big name, they do, but sometimes you can just sort of wind up with sort of like a
Mhm.
generic something.
Generic.
But generic, right? But it seems like they really curated your book, Caitlin.
They did. This is it's been a lot of fun. All credit to Donna Bister at Fomite. But this is actually a cluster of red blood cells. And what she did with it is, I mean, it's gorgeous. Everyone picks it up thinking it's a rose.
Mhm.
And she did, it's perfect. It's
It is.
eye-catching. It's meaningful. It is beautiful.
It is beautiful. It's striking. It's really striking. That's wonderful. All right. Well, enough about you. Let's talk about other authors.
Yes.
Tell me what you're reading. Tell me who. I mean, you're both actually professionals in this area because you're a publicist and Flossie is a seller. But Caitlin, sell us some books. Who you're reading, and to the audience, links are going to be in the chat to pick these up at Union Avenue.
Okay. One I read, and they're both small press titles. I admit I know them. I just have to say that, but the books are fabulous. Shelf Life of Happiness, a story collection by Virginia Pye, Pye. It is so beautifully written, and each story is different. She tackles different subjects. She tackles a wife in Italy feeling sort of displaced in her own marriage. She tackles a young skateboarder trying to connect with his father. No story is the same. The themes are the same, just beautifully done. So that's Virginia Pye's Shelf Life of Happiness from Press 53. And then I'm really looking forward to Steve Yarborough's new novel, Stay Gone Days. It's coming from IG Publishing next month. So that's Steve Yarborough's Stay Gone Days. He's published tons of great books. I have worked with him in the past as well. He's just a wonderful writer, and he just got a great PW. And Flossie, it's a sister story.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
It's
I want
wonderful.
to make sure we have that on order. Make sure we get
Please
that
do.
on order.
Yes.
And we're putting in the chat, Caitlin. I know that Virginia Pye spoke with you for Southern Literary Review.
Yes, she's a
we're
friend
dropping,
too.
Dropping that link in the chat for people who want to check it out. That's a great interview. And I'm going to add something else we have in common is that we both published in Monkey Bicycle.
Oh,
yes.
that's fabulous.
We're both Monkey Bicycle alums.
I love that.
I love it.
So, and I loved the piece that you did for Monkey Bicycle where you were writing about Geographies of the Heart. We'll put that link in the chat as well. And I sort of feel like since fate has brought us together, we should say something about James Tate Hill and the
fabulous
memoir,
person. Yes.
Blind Man's Bluff. Yes, Blind Man's Bluff. James's memoir is we should join forces to promote him.
Yes, wonderful writer. I have to confess, it's on my TBR.
Yeah.
But I'm really so happy for him and proud of him, and he's gotten amazing reviews.
Yes,
amazing.
Oh, he deserves it. It's so nice to see.
Yeah.
Also hilarious on Twitter. So anyway, good. I'm so glad we could do that.
Yeah. Shout outs to others are important. I mean, we all have to stick together.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Flossie, sell us some books. What are you reading? What's exciting right now?
Lots of excitement. I would be remiss without recommending The Paris Bookseller by Carrie Maher.
Yeah. Actually, Carrie Maher is a personal friend of mine, and that is
she really?
Yeah, she lives near me, and she's fabulous.
Oh, I just ate that book up.
Oh, I'm so glad.
And it's just for all book people and bookstore owners and patrons to know what someone went through in the beginnings in Paris in the early 20s.
Yeah.
It's stunning what she did. It went through the obstacles. Talk about, whoa. And she did it. And this is the anniversary year of the 100th anniversary of when she finally got Ulysses published for James Joyce.
Yeah.
So she really captures the whole Paris senior in Paris right before World War II and during World War II. And I really liked it a lot.
It's a wonderful book. I mean, Carrie Maher, I think, is just a wonderful person and writer. She's done the Kennedy debutante about Kit Kennedy. She did her Grace Kelly book, Girl in the we'll put the links in. I'm having a moment.
Okay.
We'll put the links in the chat. But yeah, Paris Bookseller is wonderful, and Carrie has some really interesting and exciting stuff coming down the pipeline. So everybody stay tuned on that. What else do you want to talk to us about? What else are you excited about these days?
Let's see. Well, of course, I talked about Cloud Cuckoo Land, Anthony
Mhm.
Doerr. It's just one of my favorite books of all time.
Yep.
And then I guess one book that really stayed with me last year when I read it, and I keep recommending it, a lot of people know about it, is Hamnet by
No, yeah,
Maggie O'Farrell. It was
yeah,
just one of the most touching books I've ever read.
yeah.
And talk about, and it's historical fiction in some ways, and just beautiful writing that I don't ever cry with a book, but
Mm,
I had to just sit there for a while at the
yeah.
end.
Oh, yeah.
So just beautiful writer. Just she's so good.
She is. And the end of that book was just perfect.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
and then Ann Tyler, she's one of my all-time favorites, and she's got a new one coming out next month, French Braid. And I don't know how many books she's published. I've read every single one of them. They're all family, character driven, not much happens, and I love I love them. I mean, yeah, she's my crack.
I love that. So great. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. Yeah,
I
if you
do
want
have
to-
another. Can I just talk about one?
please. Yeah, please.
This was written the fortnight in September
Okay.
by R.C. Sharif,
Hmm.
and it was written in 1932, and it's been reprinted by Scribner. Absolutely, is set in England, a family going on holiday. Absolutely nothing happens, but it is the most beautiful almost minute to minute that it was so absorbing to me and touching.
Yeah,
And I like the fact that some of the publishers are bringing back older books that have just faded away.
that's
And
fabulous. That's fabulous. I love all of those. To the audience, we have plugged the Carrie Mayer interview that I did last year into the chat. That was in April 2021. Carrie was supporting Diane's books in Connecticut, and so that's in the chat if you want to hear more from Carrie Mayer. Kaylin, we are running down on time. I have a final question for you, which is, and you might hate this one. What can we expect next? What are you working on?
yes.
Well, right now I'm taking a break. I have been so slow to write these books that I'm painting my house and I'm baking and doing fun things. But I think what'll probably be next is I'll see if I can do something with that middle grade story,
Great.
which is set in Tennessee and not far from Knoxville. I'd love to see that one land. So I think what's next is revision.
I love it.
Good.
Yeah, I love it. I know that feeling, that sort of feeling that you have a work and you just sort of like you want it to be out in the world. Like you sort of feel like it deserves to kind of have a life. So
And so do I.
yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Good advice for writers. Good advice for writers. You deserve to have a life. Flossie, last question always goes to the bookseller.
Okay.
Being successful as an independent bookseller is part luck, part hard work, and part what else?
Well, can it be long?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Booksellers who are voracious readers with strong, fabulous customer service skills.
I think that's it. I think that's it. I think you nailed it.
That kind of covers everything.
You do. I think you pulled it all together. You nailed
But
it.
luck is such a big one, so I'm glad you had that in there.
Yeah.
Luck and hard work. Yeah.
Luck and hard work. Yeah. But also, I think what Caitlin's talking about, dedication to community, the way that you take care of your customers, the way you take care of your authors, the way you respond to small presses. I think it's wonderful. Thank you both so much for being here with me today. It's been a total pleasure to speak to the two of you.
It's been fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, to the online audience, once again, we are spending time with Union Avenue Books in Knoxville, Tennessee. Links in the chat. Wonderful independent bookseller. pick up some books for yourself. Pick up some books for people you love. Pick up copies of Caitlin Hamilton Summie's To Later Rest Our Ghosts, award-winning short story collection, and debut novel, Geographies of the Heart. Caitlin, congratulations on these works. Total pleasure. To the audience, thank you so much for being here with us for our episode number 86. Head on back next week, same time, same place. Until then, be well. Keep reading.
Thank you for all you do.